What is good, everybody? This is Coach Phil, and welcome to season two of Deep in the Game. And as you can see with the man with the top golf hat on, I hope his game is pretty good. We have CF Canadian Football Hall of Famer Damon Allen. And before I let it, this is just an honor. It's a privilege. And for you to be on here, man, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on Deep in the Game. How you doing, sir?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And I'm a great lover of the sport, CFL and football in general. And I love sports because, growing up, I played multiple sports growing up. And so it's always nice to be on here and talk football, and especially with the CFL season just around the corner when it comes to the playoffs getting started. I'm really anticipating what's going to happen over the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Who you rooting for? You rooting for your Argos? Who you going for?
I'm a lover of great football being played, and so normally when I watch sports, I don't wait until they start the playoffs. So that's when I realize that the true aspect of playing great football in the playoff time is much greater than it is in the regular season. So I'm looking forward to these teams are not far away, because based on the records this year, everyone's fairly close.
Yeah.
How they're going to do during the playoffs and who is the hottest team going into the playoffs is also some of the things that you look at. So
For somebody that played, and I'm going to go down the resume right now because you have had some success when it comes to the postseason. So let me read down this resume. 4-time CFL All-Star, 4-time Grey Cup champion, a 3-time Grey Cup MVP. The one thing that's the one facet that I figured out was you're the second oldest MVP of any North American sports franchise, right behind Gordie Howe. Does that kind of like make you laugh a little bit? Like, wow, I'm not that old. But then you see nowadays like Tom Brady playing till he's like 45. Does that like, I don't know. Is that like make you laugh? Like I still can do it.
you might want to throw my good friend in there, Henry Burris. I think he might have been MVP or Grey Cup MVP at around the same age, but he might have been a couple of months older that he might have broke that record. But I just think that when I played the game, I worked at it. I put a lot of time in preparing myself mentally and physically, and I always felt that I was the best athlete on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And my goal, every team I went to, is to try to win a Grey Cup. And so, my goals are very simple, but it takes that kind of hard work and dedication and believes in yourself and knowing that what you can do on the football, which is I have the capability of dominating the football game because I can run and throw. And those are the things I had to bring to the stadium every time I played.
Wow. Respect the hell out of that right there. That's a word right there. Thank you so much for that. Do you, when you mentioned about your work ethic, you were playing till you were about 42, 43. What did
I retired when I was 44.
40? See, it gets even crazier now that you mention it. What did you do to be able to sustain that level of play and also play with the longevity? What did Damon Allen do?
Part of my off-season workout is always going back to my fundamentals and working on my fundamentals. Do I still try to keep my range of motion? Do I still try to maintain my strength or get stronger as each year? I was a big component on trying to maintain my weight, and a lot of times it was based on how the season went. And if I was injured during that time, I may take a little time off before I started training. But if I went through the season fairly healthy, I would continue with my workouts right after the season's over. I just may not work out, 5 days a week, but I'll cut it down to 2 to 3, but maintain, the things that I believe that I needed to work on year in and year out was my fundamentals.
That's very good. That's something that I feel like in this generation, we see a lot of kids, they want to go do 7-on-7, they want to do flag, they want to do all that stuff. But for you, that option wasn't really there. And I want you to tell your story because I could ask questions, I could do all that, but I don't, that's not how we do it here on Deep in the Game.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to tell your story. So you were born San Diego, California. Just take it from there.
Yeah, I was born in San Diego, California, and we had a family that lived up the street, and their last name were the Kirkendalls. Um, and they used to walk by our house like every different seasons at a time, and they would have a baseball uniform on. And they'll be walking home, and we'll be asking like, "Hey, what do you guys do? What little league program you guys play for?" And they would say in Cano Little League. And then we asked our pops, we want to play baseball. If it be someone else to see somebody in a football uniform, I mean, right away. That's really how we really started playing football because I always quote what my brother said when we were watching TV because my father was a great sports fan. All my brothers, we love sports. Whatever we seen on TV, we went outside and mimicked what we seen on TV. And in our backyard in San Diego, we had floodlights, so we can have floodlights. We can play, backyard sports, all night through the night because we had night lights. And so whether we had basketball courts in our backyard, and so you had to be very creative. For example, we would if we were watching the Major League Baseball All-Star game, and we had our own uniforms, right? And my father was a coach. He would have the chalk. He would have everything. We would line up the field, put on our uniforms. We would mimic what we see in the All-Star game, but we would play baseball with aluminum cans. So
Wow.
when you smash a aluminum can and then you throw it has some wicked breaking balls, right? And and so if you get an aluminum can, I mean, a baseball was easy to hit after those things. That's what we would do as kids because we were passionate about the sport. We loved watching it on TV, but like my brother said, one of his famous lines that I use all the time. He said he knew what side of the TV he wanted to be on.
Wow.
He wanted to be playing and not watching. And so I think that's where our passion and all these different things came about, and along with having friends that introduced us to these sports. And then, once we took it from there, it's like my father always says, if you sign up to baseball or football, you can't quit. You got to figure it out. And those are the things we started to do. And once we got involved, we had to put everything that we had to, you want to be good. So you had to put the work in into whatever we were doing. And so for me, as a 7-year-old, I knew since I was 7 years old, I wanted to play baseball and football. And my goal was to be good at both of them and have the choice to pick. Hold on. I gotta move around.
No, you're good. You're good. Anything can happen on Deep in the Game, y'all.
No, because the lights go off because I don't go in the office. But the lights go off at a certain point, so I knew the lights went off. Let me move. Let them know I'm still here. But no, we knew right away like what I wanted to do since I was 7 years old, and I wanted to give myself the opportunity to play two sports, have the ability to get drafted in two sports, and all those things came true. Through my high school, I played baseball and football. Through my university, when I was at Cal State Fullerton, not only were 12 and pretty much 12-0 in my senior year at Cal State Fullerton, but I also was a national championship baseball player, and I got drafted by Detroit Tigers.
What year?
So I had the ability to pick and choose what sport I wanted to play, and I chose football.
What year did you get drafted by the Detroit Tigers?
1984, the year they won the World Series.
Dang. So You weren't on the winning World Series team, but take us through that experience of getting drafted by. You got drafted by the Detroit Tigers, but did you get any looks into the NFL at all?
During that time, I knew I went to the NFL Combine in Tempe, Arizona at that time. And I ran one of the fastest 40s. I was able to make all the throws because at that time, they're being an athletic quarterback wasn't the prevalent back then, and most of those guys, and I fell in that same category. Most of the guys, if you're an athletic quarterback, they're trying to change your position. And so there were times when, they're saying that I may get drafted between 5th and 7th round, or at that time. But the Edmonton Eskimos, they gave me pretty much second, third round money to come to Canada, and I signed before the draft. I signed to play football because everybody says, "Well, why did you choose one or the other?" Because baseball players make more money. For me, it's always been the ability to play every day. And so when I was a baseball player, I was a middle reliever, spot starter. So sometimes I would go on a 3-game series and may not pitch because nowadays, middle relievers rarely do they pitch now, right?
Right.
Because they at least give the starter at least 5 to 6 rounds to be able to get out of what they need to get to. And then 7 through 9, the closers are coming in. And now it's just completely reversed now. Like, multiple teams are using multiple pitchers in a whole game, right? So two to three pitchers may pitch in a game. So it's a little bit different now. But back then, like you're saying, I was a middle reliever, spot starter, and there were some times I didn't play at all. It'd be a 3-game series because your starters did well, very, very well, and then the closer comes in, right? And so. And in football, I was an everyday player. I was a starting quarterback, and so that's one of the reasons why I chose football.
What was your experience when you first got to Edmonton? I know if you ever, obviously people that have been to Edmonton, they know they're serious about their football. They don't play about it. But for you back then in the '80s, what was it like for you?
It was very interesting because I didn't know too much about. I know I watched War and Moon in 1982. That was my brother's first year in the National Football League, and that was the year that the NFL had a strike. Right, they only played 14 games, and my brother won Rookie of the Year that year in '82 with the Raiders. He had 14 touchdowns in 12 or 14 games as a rookie. So,
and Al Davis still didn't like him.
yeah, that didn't stop him because he was
no, bad. Your brother, I didn't want to say it, but your brother was a bad man, bad man.
Yeah, he was a bad man. That's for sure. And so I think during that time, when the NFL strike that year, they start showing CFL games. And so 2 years later, then I started to get to understanding that the Edmonton Eskimos, I didn't know until my senior year that my coach told me that the Edmonton Eskimos had my rights. And there was a scout by the name of Ray Newman that was coming to see me practice over the last 2 years since I was a sophomore. And it's funny that it was Ray Newman as a scout and the Detroit Tigers scout. They're literally down there fighting to say that they were doing me a disservice of me playing football. And he felt I was a baseball player, and the other scout, Ray Newman, thought I was a football player. So they were literally two agents or recruiters are fighting over, like, I'm doing this guy a disservice. He should be playing baseball. So, it's those kind of things, like I said. But remember, I told you at 7 years old what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so I set out to do that ever since I was 7 years old. I wanted to play baseball and football. I wanted to get drafted in both. And I wanted to give myself the opportunity to be able to say what sport I wanted to choose. And so it came about that way, but eventually I chose football. And that's how I came to Edmonton. And coming to Edmonton, I didn't know too much about the Edmonton Eskimos, other than Warren Moon, went there because I started watching Warren Moon in 1982, right? Due to the NFL strike. When I got there, it was Matt Dunnigan there, and Matt Dunnigan already at that time in '84, he might have been an all-star already. And it's a funny story. Like if I tell you the story, back then we played 4 preseason games.
Mm-hmm.
And we played a 16-game schedule, 4 preseason games. And then I played the first game of the year. We're playing Saskatchewan Roughriders. I played a half of football. And then after that half of football, the next 3 preseason games, I wasn't in uniform at all. One game I was sitting in the stands. The other times I didn't even suit up the next 3 games. And they're allowing the last year's second string quarterback and the third string quarterback was fighting it out, not knowing the situation because they didn't have these conversations with me. I remember calling my mom and I was like saying that, hey, Mom, I'm not sure if I made the team. Even though they gave me this huge signing bonus and all these different things, I thought that if they wanted you, that you would be playing on a consistent basis. You know, I would play all preseason games, but they made their decision the half of football that I was going to be their backup. And then allowed the backup and the third string quarterback to fight it out to see who's going to be third string.
So they basically were preserving you in a way.
At that time, I didn't know, but before that, afterwards, they basically said that you were the backup after playing a half of football.
See, that's on some Chris Jones stuff. But anyway, take us through. Offenses were totally different back then, obviously, compared to what they are now. But you guys were doing some revolutionary stuff throughout your career. What was a normal offense for you throughout your career? Was it more of like read out and not what is like RPO, the early stages of RPO, or was it just, hey, we're just going to send everybody deep? Was it vertical? Was it horizontal? What were you accustomed to?
Well, the only thing different is it was probably my second half of my career. I started to be more in shotgun, but my first 10 years, I was pretty much underneath the center, and it'd be the odd time not getting shotgun. And so, yeah, the offense is a little bit different being underneath the center because now you have the ball right now, and so you would probably have to show if you're blitzing a little bit earlier because you can disguise more when you're in shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was probably the biggest difference in when I was playing early on in the career in the 80s is the fact that we did everything underneath the center. And, and that's, a missing art in our game today because now you can throw hot quicker. It's a variety of different things. They can't disguise blitzes when you have the ball from the line of scrimmage. And I think that was probably the biggest difference. And also, the linebacker play. I mean, like you say, everybody would say, well, what is the biggest difference in the game today? I would say the second line of defense, which we're talking about the linebacker play. Mm-hmm. When I came in the league in the 80s, they had a big Sam linebacker, they had a big middle linebacker, and they had a big Will linebacker. So you can throw the ball right next to all those guys because they didn't have the movement they have now. The biggest difference now is you have the Sam linebacker is a slash linebacker DB. The Will linebacker is the same position as a Sam. And then the Mac linebacker, the guy who plays in the middle, he's smaller, more agile. So that line of defense is probably more difficult because those 3 positions probably move a little bit better than they did in the 80s. And so I've seen all 3 of the evolutions of the game because it was all 3 of the big linebackers. And then in the 90s, they switched the Sambacker into that kind of the hybrid nickel. And then now in the 2000s, now they use the Sam and the Will linebacker is that same hybrid type of player because a lot of teams started going 3 receivers to the boundary.
Yeah.
Instead of just, always bringing the Sam over, which most of the time is in man coverage. Now, when you bring 3 to the boundary, they just push the Will. and I just push the wheel. You don't know if they're in man or zone at the time, right? So, it's about scheming, and then it's about having the right kind of linebackers, because now, back then they probably ran the ball a little bit more.
Yeah.
Now with smaller linebackers and is built for the passing game, probably teams probably should be running a little bit more. And the teams who can run the football can really offset and keep a defense off of balance, because now you can run down their throat too, right?
Yeah. See, when I've gone far as back as the early '90s watching the game. I haven't really crashed into the '80s. I've seen a little bit of the '80s, but I noticed like those linebackers, because I was a linebacker, coach linebackers all my career. They were more predicated for stopping the run in a way. Like they were built. If they were American, they were built to. Hey, I've seen every type of run style. I'm built for that. But as a quarterback for you, that's lunch meat for you. Hey, I know you were just loving that. Oh, this big linebacker, that's a mismatch right there. Was that something that you saw, or was like, oh, I still got to watch out for him? Like an Alundra Johnson, a Mike O'Shea, guys like that.
Yeah. Well, don't forget, they were just as afraid as me and getting them in open field than I was to them, right? So,
Oh yeah, they got. I'm not. I've seen you run. We'll talk about that in a second.
They would have more trouble dealing with me in open field than it is me being underneath the center and me have to zone read and all those different things, because I didn't have to worry too much about the match linebacker, because I always dealt with most of the ends, right? And when you have to do read zone and all those different things. And so the one thing about me, and which was difficult sometimes to prepare for, is due to the fact is I can play any kind of game. And I can play in a shootout when you throw every down to, hey, you got to control the running game, and don't forget you got to control this guy who can get outside the pocket and can run and throw and all those different things. And so it was kind of a different how you had to defend me compared to how you had to probably deal with Danny McManus or Ken Austin and those things. And so I can make a team take a guy out of defense and have him on me.
Right.
So when that happens, then I already know that you can't bring more people that we can block. Because I've already removed the player out of a blitz or anything situation because he's spying me.
So it's one-on-one. If he's if he's the Mac, he's like, hey, if I'm going to spy on him, I got to be on my A game, because he's going to put some moves on me that I've never seen, but I got to be disciplined. I got to break it.
Disciplined, because they could be running cover 10 with the Mac linebacker spying me. But when I get those kind of things, then I don't have to worry about running, because like you said, we can protect it. And that you're daring me to throw. And like I said, I can put numbers up, you know what I mean? So, so that's the thing. Either you're going to come after me, and then if you do come after me, then you have to make sure you guys stay in your lanes. And if I break containment or get out of that situation, then, the DBs would know whether I keep on with this guy running down the field or let Damon run. So it's always a give and take of how you're going to deal with a guy who can run and throw and do a lot of different things.
Respect that. So for you, your time in Edmonton, what was it like playing in your first Grey Cup? You sent me, I did the little reel for you, the I Don't Get Tired, and I've seen a lot of your footage, but what was that experience like for you playing in your first Grey Cup?
It's interesting because I always go back to the times, the history of it all. That was my second Grey Cup. That was my first Grey Cup in my second year.
Mm-hmm.
In the regular season, we beat Hamilton. We were 2 times in the regular season. I came off the bench one time in Hamilton, and we beat them. That Grey Cup game, I remember vividly. We were 14 points favorites in that game. And I remember we were in the introduction line, and they were so quiet. Like, But then I didn't realize that was their third Grey Cup in a row. That was our first. And we were just all over the place. And that's when we started to learn about, hey, distractions throughout the week, too hyped for the game. They're quiet as a church mouse because they've already had 3 years of experience with being in the Grey Cup. And then before we blinked our eye, it was 29-0. And then the reason why I played in that game is due to the fact is we kicked off in the opening third quarter and they went down the field and scored again, and it was 36-0. And then basically in the fourth quarter came, Jackie Parker asked me if I wanted to play in the fourth quarter. And then I got a chance to play in the fourth quarter. I put up 2 touchdowns. And I think that's the significant aspect of when I got the chance to play in that last quarter, which helped me in the next year in 1987 to being called when Dunnigan got hurt in the second quarter, and to me being ready to play, and we ended up winning the Grey Cup in 87. What I did in that fourth quarter, I think really helped, along with that year in 87. I started in, I think, 9 games that year.
Right.
I think we went 8-1. And one of those games we played Toronto. It was late in October. And I think we beat them pretty good in Commonwealth. We put up 41. And even though I played pretty much half the downs and stuff like that, when the playoffs started, Matt had a really good semi and Western final game. And like I said, I was just waiting my opportunity to get called again. So, and it happened, right? It happened. So,
yeah. See, that's the thing. Like, I've looking at your career, man. You've had some stops along the way that surprised me. And everywhere you went, whether it was Hamilton, whether it was Ottawa for 1 year, even Memphis, your game always stayed the same. But it was like a really good stayed the same, if that makes sense. It was consistent.
Yes. No question. Because like I said, at that time when I was in Edmonton, I was taught well. I had a good coach in Steve Goldman. They taught us how to manage games. We had to call our own plays in Edmonton during that time, right? Because Edmonton, the quarterbacks called the game. And so over those years, I've learned how to manage a game. And it's really bode well throughout my career, because, you know, I don't think you can name many quarterbacks in the last 15 years that out of the 4 Grey Cup games games that I won, 3 of the games I called the game.
I didn't know that. That's wow. Is that like a badge of honor for you? Like, I'm calling my game, nobody can tell me nothing, or does that make you nervous?
It's tough enough just having an offensive coordinator, but to be able to be in the game, calling pretty much all the downs. I mean, there'll be some plays that would come in that we would get from the bench, but mainly I was calling the game. I called the game in 87. That's my year in the league, bro. And I called that game the second year. And so
the full game
in 87.
The whole game. He never came. He was like, I have no suggestions or nothing. He let you call.
When I came in the game in 87, I called the game.
Wow.
And then, so like you're saying, in Edmonton, that's how it was taught. But let me tell you a little bit, because the quarterbacks call their plays. Now, the plays that were being called were still in the structure of our offensive system. Like we may have 20 plays on 1st and 10, 20 plays, 2nd, 4 to 6, 20 plays, 2nd and 7 to 10, right? And situational football. So I would have a number of plays that I would call that I liked in 1st and 10, 2nd and 4 to 6, and 2nd and 7 to 10, right? So Dunnigan may have a different set of plays. Tracy Ham may have a different set of plays. But so when we already got on the field, I'm calling my plays that I like. So it was within the system. But like I said, Dunnigan plays may be different from mine. what the plays I like, but they're still in the structure of our offenses. So that's what I mean. And when you're on the field, you're calling your plays. I'm looking at it, we're depending on down and distance, where we are. We second and 4 to 6. I would look at one of the 4 to 6 plays to see if that's still working. If that wasn't working, then I was already adapting. Because when you call your own plays, I can adapt quicker.
Right.
Because I'm on the field and we're making adjustments and I'm communicating with the guys on the field and saying, hey, we did this play 2 times. This is how they're playing it. Hey, this is what we're going to do. We can change things up, give them the same look, but give them tell the guy to run a different route, right? And so,
right. We got the same look, but we can zhuzh it up a little bit. We can go here. We can go high here. We can move the slot here. We can.
yes. And so you can do those things. And like, Flutie said, it's kind of like somewhat satellite football, because we can give you a play and you might have stopped it, and we'll give you the same play, but we just change a route or two.
It was like run and shoot principles back then, but
Yeah.
it wasn't run and shoot just yet. Now, my next question for you I have is, after you left Edmonton, what was the most challenging stop for you?
Probably the most challenging one was Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
Because we had just won the Grey Cup, and then I had left there in '88. I got hurt in '88, and I didn't really play as much because I got hurt twice, 2 different times, and I missed a lot of games that year. And that's when Tracy Ham, because we're talking about Dunnigan. It was Dunnigan, myself, and Tracy Ham on the same team.
That's a quarterback. Ooh, that's a
Right.
nice ring right there.
During that time, Tracy was, when I first got in the league, he was the third string quarterback, and he was holding the clipboard.
Yeah.
Then when Dunnigan got traded in '88, I became the starter. Tracy was the backup, and then when I got hurt, Tracy came out in '89. Tracy was MVP of the league, right? And so, so you had to be on your game week in and week out because of the level of competition at quarterback. Nowadays, these quarterbacks don't have backups. They're playing well. They compete for a job, and then sometimes they have to go through what they need to go through. But in our case, you got to be on point because that second string quarterback is a Hall of Famer, and that third string quarterback is a Hall of Famer. If you look at what we were able to do in our careers, all 3 of us, we're all Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and we're all on the same team.
That's a challenge right there, man, in itself. But then when you got to Ottawa, the only game I saw from Ottawa when you were there was the playoff game against Hamilton, and you were running for your life in that game. I don't know. You were fly though. You were fly though. I'll give you that. You was looking fly out there with the red and black and white. It was smooth with the spats. I was like, all right, brother got the swag to it.
And we were talking about when I was in Ottawa, or
Ottawa. I think it was a playoff game. Yeah,
was that against our first playoff game? Might have been against Toronto.
I think Toronto or Hamilton. Because you were the starter, if my memory. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it might have been. I might have been in Ottawa at that time. Because we ended up playing, when I was in Hamilton, we ended up playing the Rough Riders as well. So, but Ottawa was the biggest challenge because it dealt with me mental and my toughness, because that was the place that, man, in Ottawa, you had to feel like that you had to complete every pass there. The fans were getting on me, every incompletion. So mentally, that toughened me up, and it prepared me to continue on with my career. And what made it neat is the 2004 Grey Cup was in Ottawa, and I think when I was a Grey Cup MVP in that game, I think they probably appreciated me more than when I was there in Ottawa. But those are all the lessons that you learn. But that, it was going to be no denying like what I can do and will do on the football field. And so I would say Ottawa was my challenging time, because that was the team I went to, and they really like made me as the savior of the franchise.
Right.
And I wasn't like that when I was in Edmonton. I was just the backup quarterback that played and started, and then one of the fan favorites because they felt that hey, I should have been the starter. But like I said, Matt Dunnigan was a great quarterback, and we talked about it early in our careers that we was going to take both of us to win a Grey Cup, and it did. It took both of us.
See that I admire that you're able to see you guys are able to have that conversation because it was no animosity. It was you guys saw the bigger picture that
Yeah.
we got to work together.
No,
And
no
then,
question.
and that's rare. That's rare that you see that.
Well, it is rare in a sense because back in the days in the 80s and the 90s, every team had a really good, backup quarterbacks. I mean,
Hmm.
if you look at it today, like one of the starters get hurt, man, the team's in trouble.
Hmm.
And so it may not be the same as it was in the 80s and 90s where, like I said, the starting quarterback had competition. And so nowadays, the guys that can run and throw, they're all getting opportunity to play in the National Football League. And just imagine if the NFL was dealing with the quarterbacks that are playing today in the National Football League, where would all those guys be if they were
Right.
not drafting athletic two-way quarterbacks? They will all be in the CFL right now. So the Lamar Jacksons and all these guys would be playing in the CFL if the NFL didn't change their philosophy of at times not putting their worst athlete behind the center, but now you putting one of your best athletes behind the center.
Right. So as we talk about your career and the phase, you went through so many different phases in your career. The one stop that I think you were at your peak, to me, your peak, your best, like the best version of you, and maybe I'm wrong, Toronto. The Toronto Damon Allen was a different animal. The one game that I do, it wasn't necessarily the Grey Cup that I admired. It's more so that East final against
Oh,
Montreal.
Montreal, yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it,
I
and
was, I was determined because, when Toronto made that trade for me, you know, and that's why for me, I like to get the biggest praise and accolades is from my teammates and the organization that what they believe about me when I'm coming there, right? They
Mhm.
thought I was the final piece.
Mm,
And so when you feel that, hey, we got the final piece is, hey, we're gonna win a championship with this guy. So I'm determined right away. Like I said, when I'm going there, I already know their history. They've been to the Eastern Final 3 times before that, never went past. And so when I got there, my whole mindset was to get to the Grey Cup, and you got to do whatever it takes to get there. And the teams always had a pretty good defense. I used to always tell them, like, hey, O'Shea, just get us a game. When we get to the game, we're going to win. And so, based on my track record is pretty good.
oh well, hey, he was hell when you was well. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, so I just think that the determination, like most people, they don't. If I ask a fan, like, what did I do my 10th year, ninth game of the season, what did I do? And they don't know. But you ask them, what did I do in a Grey Cup, right? That's the biggest game, and that's the games you want to be remembered for is winning championships. And so, I took those things serious, and even during those games, everything that I do well, all my senses are heightened on
Hmm.
that game. And so much more in tune. Uh, yeah, everything is heightened for me and during that game. My calmness, every aspect, thinking about the game, making the adjustments, all those different things is they're totally different than it is on a regular season game.
Right. See that? I respect that because you're not. When I watch you, you're not really a rah rah guy. You're not a Tom Brady where he's like, "Let's f and go" and all of that. Or you don't have to necessarily yell at your teammates to get them to get your point across. You're very even keel. You're very chill. Did that ever like for you as a quarterback and after you retire and everything? What do you teach kids, like young quarterbacks or players? What knowledge do you pass on to them?
Well, you got to be who you are in your personality, and you have to be able to deal with. I'm like E.F. Hutton. When it's time for me to say something, I got the attention of the whole room, right? Because
Hmm.
it's rarely. I've never been the type of player because I play with guys, do all the rah rah, and then they get on the field, they don't do nothing. And so I've always been, hey, work first. I'm going to show you what I'm capable of doing, and then if there's times that we have to discuss, because like I said, I can tell you on different teams, they all have different aspects about my leadership. Early in my career, I've always was questioned about my leadership, and I don't know too many people like quarterbacks are questioned about their leadership, and they won four Grey Cups, and you're being questioned about your leadership, and you can't lead a team. So it's a style of leadership that most people like most and believe that that's what you have to be. And I don't believe that because some of the greatest quarterbacks that ever played the game, Joe Montana, they don't call him Cool Hand Luke for nothing.
Mm-mm.
You didn't see him yelling and rah rah and all that different thing. He did his talking, communication, all those different things on the sidelines between you and the other player. Like I said, I'm like E.F. Hutton. Even to this day, pinball talks about. I talked to the team the day before. Like, I don't have to talk to them in the game because I already knew I prepared for them the day before the game, and they were ready to go.
Right.
Maybe the day after, because, like pinball says, it wasn't a dry eye in the room. Because I was already showing them like what this game means to me and who I'm playing for. And I was calling out guys' names like, hey, I'm playing this game for you. I'm playing this game for you because I was pointing out the guys not who were starting, but the guys who worked extremely hard, who may not play in the game, but they prepared us to get ready to play the game. And so when you make a speech that way, I was trying to stir the emotions of our football team.
Right.
And it worked because the next day we came out and we were ready to play. We felt even though we might have been underdogs, we felt that
Exactly. I
no,
respect that.
we felt that we were going to beat them because if everyone looks back, the two games that we played against BC in the regular season, which we barely lost those games, I didn't play. I didn't play in those two games. And I was trying to tell my BC Lions ex-teammates that this shit gonna be different. I was trying to let them know this shit gonna be different now. This ain't the two regular season games.
I'm out here. I'm
You
out
get
here. I'm going to work.
somebody who knows how to play in these games and is determined to win. And come on, man, I was motivated that day because that was probably the first game that my brother attended.
Mm.
Since his retirement and all those different things, and been able to come to my games. It was my brother's first Grey Cup game. So you had to play well in front of your bro.
Big brother.
You're right. And so
Exactly.
it
That's
all
it.
worked out that, not only you win the game, not only is pinball being the first melanated coach to win a Grey Cup in CFL history,
Yes.
at the same time, to be able to be MVP of the game and my brother there and my brothers are all there and you're playing your the team you left. Come on, bro. You couldn't write the script, bro.
No, you could. You know what's funny? I'm a student of the game. I've always been a person that loves the history of football, baseball, basketball. And you want to know when I first discovered you?
Who?
I discovered you when I was 9 years old.
9 years old? Wow.
I did a paper on your brother. And I was like, you got a brother that played Canadian football. I knew of the CFL. I
Yeah.
just didn't know all the history and all that. So I was on Wikipedia cheating on my paper. And I went and I clicked on your name and I was like, him? That's his brother? Then I started reading the credentials. This is 2004. You were coming off of the Grey Cup. I was like,
Oh, okay, yeah.
I was like, dang, he legit. And I always remember the picture that they used was you were in a suit, you were standing next to the Grey Cup. And I was like, okay. And now looking at it, what is it now? 27 years later, I'm sitting here talking with you.
Yeah, man, it's amazing. No, it really is amazing because, like, to me, it's I love the game. I like promoting the game, and I have a story to tell, and there's a lot of things that go on that sometimes the people don't know the inside of it all.
Right.
Because even that game we played, you said you watched the Eastern Final, right?
Yeah.
After that game, the reporter had asked me. He had asked me, like, you know who you're going to play? And this is before the BC Lions advanced to the whatchamacallit. I said, yeah, you can't write this script. We're going to BC Lions.
Mm-hmm.
I said that after the game in the Eastern Final.
Wow.
Because I was already setting up. Like, you can't write this script. I'm going to face my former team.
I swear,
And
that's
then
a
we
hell of a
have
story.
it. I was glad I was with the team because they believed we was going to get it done. We had a good defense, and it was our time.
There it is. So we're going to end this interview with 3 questions. It's just random questions, nothing crazy, little fire questions. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. As a baseball fan, who did you look to? Like, who were your favorite baseball players growing up? All time. It could be now, or back when you're growing up. All time. Who's your favorite players?
Willie Mays,
Okay.
Roberto Clemente,
Mm.
Pete Rose.
R.I.P. Pete Rose should be in the hall.
Yeah, I was a Cincinnati fan. I love Willie Mays, and I'm like saying, even I played it against Barry Bonds, and so he's one of my favorites too. So
You played against Barry Bonds.
yeah, he was at A State, Arizona State.
Yeah.
I was at Cal State Fullerton.
Wow.
We beat him. We beat him in the World Series 10-3.
Was Barry was legit back then? Did you know what kind of?
Yeah, man. Barry was good in college, man. Really good. He might have been their third hitter at A State. Like, come on, Barry Bonds was like, come on, man. It's all work.
Because you always hear about how Junior was like a product. Ken Griffey Jr. He was the kid, but Barry was different.
Barry was different because, like, come on, Barry was around baseball his whole life, and his godfather is Willie Mays, man.
He ain't had no choice.
Come on, he was going to be great, man. The great Willie Mays. Come on, man. Shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Come on, like, think about it. Like, Barry is going to be good. He's been around baseball his whole life, and even today, like, when you think about great hitters, like, come on, bro. To me, the best hitter is Barry Bonds, bro.
Yes, sir. Who was the toughest defense you ever faced in your career?
The toughest defense? Oh, probably that Winnipeg defense when I first came in the league in 1985 with Wild Wild West, Delbert Fowler. That Winnipeg team was always been really good, very athletic. They were built by their 4 linebackers. And there's been some good teams. Like Calgary's had a good team. Like I said, they've always had great middle linebackers, great linebacker play. I mean, like in my era in the 80s, 90s, it was some good football being played, and it was some really great individuals that can play the game. And so, but yeah, I would say Winnipeg is one of the teams that was always pretty tough to play when they're in the Western Division. And the Eskimos versus the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are always a dogfight.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My last question for you: if you could describe just your life, your career, everything in its totality, if you had one word, what would it be?
Durable. Longevity.
Longevity.
Yeah.
I'll take that right there. That's Enough said. I ain't got to even ask another question right there. I mean, come on. You played forever and a day.
Long time if you're not good.
You're right about that. So, Mr. Allen, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day, your schedule, your evening to be able to talk with me and rap with me. I hope one day I get to even just sit with you one on one and just rap with you, break down some film or something, man, because you're a vault of just knowledge. And I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Man, thanks for having me on. And I know we've talked a few times, but I
Yeah.
appreciate me on and anything I can do to help you, continue to move forward and, let us, enjoying the game and enjoying what we're seeing and talking about the game. We can do it anytime. We can chop it up.
Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate it. And that's another episode of Deep in the Game Season 2. We might be deep in this game, but you got the rules missing. Everybody take care.